Welcome back, guys. We are up to video number 5 now of the DBQ. In our last video, we were looking at your typical body paragraph, which begins with a topic sentence, which is kind of like a mini thesis for that particular paragraph. That is going to tie directly back to your thesis, which is your claim, your defensible claim, which you made in the last sentence of the very first paragraph. Then we also looked at how the body paragraph itself is going to be made up of a mixture of these items right here. We looked at describing the content of the documents. We also looked at how to support your thesis using those documents. Again, last video we covered that. This video we're going to cover HIPP analysis one more time. So we've looked at HIPP several times in these videos: historical, situation, intended audience, author's purpose, author's point of view, right? We have to do this, not for every document. Rather, we have to do for this DBQ alone, guys, 2020, this DBQ, we have to do for one or two documents. We're going to explain how or why the document's point of view, purpose, historical situation, or audience is relevant to an argument. One or two documents, right? If you do one, you get 1 point. If you do two, you get 2 points. And we want to make sure we get those 2 points. I would urge you to do 3. I would urge you to do maybe even 4. That way, if you have a slip up, you can have your 1 point or 2 points. So do at least 3. That way you can earn your 2 points. We want every point. Every point counts. All right, so we're going to look at some examples of how to do this well and how to not do this well. We're going to begin kind of out of order with point of view. So an acceptable use of the point of view and its significance. Remember, it's not just what the point of view is, it's the significance of the point of view. So an acceptable example. Sam Adams had the point of view of a patriot, and it was significant because it showed the radicalization of many colonists' views stemming from direct and bloody confrontations involving quartered British troops in cities such as Boston. Okay, that's great stuff. Notice they mentioned the person. They told us about his point of view. They even told us why it was significant, right? I mean, that is about as good as it gets. It's simplistic, yes, but it works. It's going to earn the point, so do it. Second example, Thomas Paine, with his publication of Common Sense, popularized the revolutionary sentiment for many Americans. So we've given his point of view as an author of a document which had already galvanized Americans to go fight for independence. Unacceptable explanations of the point of view. Sam Adams was a loyalist who wanted to promote peace with the king, and he supported the Olive Branch petition. Well, no, he wasn't. He was definitely not a loyalist. He was a patriot. He was a son of liberty. So don't do this, okay? It says the statement incorrectly identifies Sam Adams as loyalist. This is why you're going to do 3. In case you do one of these, that won't count, but that's okay. You're going to do 2 that are right, and you're going to get your 2 points. Second example of unacceptable. As Janet Shaw, a Scot visiting your brother in Wilmington, North Carolina, reflects, any officer can enter a man's plantation without being allowed to, and he can threaten the plantation owner. Though Shaw's point of view is identified as a Scot, the response does not explain the significance of ideas about American independence that might be associated with this perspective. So this goes back to the idea of, it's not enough just to tell me what the point of view is. You have to explain the significance of that point of view. They didn't do that, and they didn't earn the point. All right, purpose. We're working, I guess, backwards. Purpose. So with purpose, an acceptable example of the significance of the author's purpose would be, Adams aims to establish rule by the consent of the people, which is later written in the Constitution when the U.S. wanted to ensure it does not become like Britain. Okay, that's he's explaining why that point of view is important, because it's going to go in the Constitution. It's going to create a republic that's not a monarchy like Britain. Second example, the sentiment that taxes should be discussed with colonists through proper deliberation became common during the time period and was expressed by many. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, let's look at some unacceptable uses of purpose. Although the cost of war would be high, Inglis argued for an independent economy as a necessity of life. This statement incorrectly states that the purpose by arguing that Inglis desired an independent economy, when in fact he was arguing against leaving the British Empire. Second unacceptable example, the delegates at the House of Burgesses used the Virginia Resolves as propaganda to increase involvement towards the Revolutionary War. The purpose of this document was to influence colonists to advocate for monarchical assistance in changing parliamentary policies, not push for war. So they've misinterpreted the document, and therefore they don't understand the purpose, and therefore they can't use the purpose to strengthen their argument because they don't understand the purpose. So don't be that person. Remember, do 3. That way, if you do one of these, you can always earn your 2 points. Historical context. Examples of acceptable explanations of the significance of historical context. Number 1, Inglis's statements illustrates how some remain committed to England because of profitability of mercantile trade relationships. Okay, that's very good, right? That's telling you we're going back to mercantilism, which is, of course, the relationship between the mother country and the colonists, the economic system of trade and taxation and tariffs and all that stuff. So that's the context that they're addressing, and they're expressing how important it is because it goes back to the idea of some people remaining loyal and not wanting to jump ship. The teapot was made during the opposed taxing, but it also demonstrated how Great Britain did try to settle with the colonists by repealing taxes such as the Stamp Act. So this is a great observation. They're going to the idea of Britain repealing and not being inflexible. That's good context. All right, unacceptable context. The historical context of Document 4, January 1775, is the first shots at Lexington and Concord, April 1775. Commentary. This statement ascribes the situation of the document to the battles of Lexington and Concord, which occurred after the document was written, and thus could not be part of its authorship. So that's just a simple thing where they really have kind of messed up the timeline, if you will. If you're going to make statements like this, you need to know your history. And if you don't know it, don't make these statements because you're going to make them wrong. So unless you're really confident that you know the order of events, don't try to pin something on an event when it really happened in a different order. All right, audience, intended audience. So, acceptable explanations. Here we go. Burgesses was based on English Parliament, and this shows the connection established between the two. Now, that's frankly not a great sentence, but apparently it's acceptable. We'll go with that. Adams desires to confirm the idea of the colonists who are fed up with British rule, as well as advocate his desire to see American independence. Well, that's true. So, good stuff on that acceptable explanation of audience. Unacceptable explanation of the significance of the audience. Addressing loyalists, Thomas Paine stated that tyranny must be fought against. Well, Thomas Paine was not talking to loyalists, right? Because, loyalists hated Thomas Paine, and Thomas Paine hated loyalists, so that's not going to cut it. The intended audience of Document 2 is the British Crown, so they feel impelled to negotiate with the colonists to reach an agreement. Also, an unacceptable explanation of the significance of the audience. So, we've gone through our typical body paragraph. We've done 3 of the 4 things you need to do in your body paragraphs. The last thing we need to do is some evidence beyond the documents. Outside information, as I like to call it. So, what does it look like to use specific historical evidence beyond what is found in the documents, relevant to an argument about the prompt? Well, you have to provide several examples of this historical evidence beyond what is found in the documents. You're going to give me, give the readers rather, 2. Now you can do this. You can do 1 and earn 1 point, or you can give me 2 and get 2 points. I urge you to do 2. Obviously, do 3 and be on the safe side. That way, if one of them is not right, you still get your 2 points because every point matters. 2 quick notes on what is evidence beyond the documents. Number 1, you have to use more than just a phrase or reference. You can't just say John Adams was going to become the 2nd president of the United States. Okay, okay. Well, what else? Okay, where is there any elaboration? You've got to build on this. You've got to explain why the evidence is tied back to your argument, your claim, your thesis. Second point, this additional piece of evidence must be different from evidence used to earn the point for contextualization. Well, contextualization is in your first paragraph, and yes, it is outside information, but that doesn't count for evidence beyond the documents in the body paragraph. So the body paragraphs and your first paragraph, they're kind of separate entities. You can't count that information you put in your first paragraph as evidence beyond the documents. You've got to do those 2 in the body paragraphs themselves. So you would have to elaborate, of course. Elaboration is always the key word, but these are some things that they feel you could throw in your essay. They're not included in the document somewhere, and you can elaborate on them to support your argument and then earn your point. Or if you do 2 of them, you can earn your 2 points. And you can see some of these, are a little more obscure than others. I don't know that many of us are going to throw a Patrick Henry out there or homespun cloth, but I think Sons of Liberty, salutary neglect, quartering act, these things are pretty big. These are pretty big topics. I think some of us would be certainly very confident in throwing into their essay in a way that would make sense. All right, let's look at some examples of acceptable and unacceptable uses of this evidence beyond the text, beyond the documents, excuse me. And the first one says, these ideals, of course, contradict the essence of colonialism. Enlightenment began the shift from being ruled by others to ruling yourself. Colonists wanted more control over their own lives. Another thinker, Thomas Paine, also raised questions surrounding the nature of government rule and common sense. Okay, so they've got enlightenment going on here. They've got common sense, neither of which are directly stated in the documents, and so they're going outside the documents. Good stuff, good evidence. Beyond the documents. Okay, I actually kind of like how they threw that statement in there, because it helps you as a writer remember, okay, I've got to put stuff in here from beyond the documents. It also tips off the reader that, hey, they're going to put information in here beyond the documents. I better get ready to check mark their rubric. So beyond the documents, the Olive Branch Petition was proposed by the colonies as a last-ditch effort to spare change without the expense of war. The petition affirmed the colonies' loyalty to the king while also suggesting reforms. Despite such attempts for peace, King George III promptly rejected the negotiations, sparking the potential for war to an elevated degree. Great stuff, right? Olive Branch Petition not mentioned in the documents, but here they have thrown them out there. Good stuff. Very good stuff. All right, improperly providing evidence. Here we go. What not to do. Soon after colonists recognized that England was giving them salutary neglect, I like how it's presented as like a product or something, after common sense was written and revealed other factors, finally in July of 1776, the colonist, one of them, had achieved their independence and achieved their freedom and had the room to preserve their happiness. Yeah, I don't even know where to start with this one other than to say it's not good. Okay, you can read the commentary if you want. Not good. Second, the Stamp Act required a tax on stamps in the United States. Nice. This piece of information does not qualify or support an argument. Not to mention it's just poorly stated. All right, so we have covered our body paragraphs now. We've covered about what we're going to do in them. We're going to provide evidence beyond the text. We're going to do some HIPP analysis. We're going to support our argument using the documents. We're going to describe the content of the documents. We're going to do all those things in the 2 body paragraphs, or 3 if you have time, body paragraphs you're going to be writing. There's one more piece of the rubric we're going to look at in our next, hopefully, last video.